and it's selling premium products. It's not just the cheapest, but it's selling because it's high quality.
Well, Doug, I mean, the exciting thing is that it's dispelling the myth that Cambodia cannot export high value added, and particularly, you know, in international trade, the headache, you know, in international or regional trade is on SPS and TBT issue, phytosanitary issue, you know, and so many times we heard by, you know, people coming to the country, whether they're donor, whether the development agency, whether the private sector, they say, oh, Cambodia, you cannot meet the requirement of the importing country, the SPS, that sort of thing. You have proven that it can be done, you know, and particularly on SPS, if you can meet the Japanese requirement, believe me, you have reached the highest standard. So I hope they should be able to replicate in other sector of the industry as well. Any other success story you're proud of?
Just to finish on that now that there's a seafood processing plant, the door is open for other entrepreneurs to set up shrimp farming or fish farming, because we have a factory that can buy the output.
Yes.
So if we look in neighboring countries, every country in Southeast Asia has many shrimp farms. If you fly into Thailand, you look out the window and you see little shrimp ponds near the airport. There's millions of dollars being created every month from people growing that in their backyard and selling. So we've created an environment where another industry can develop as well. And this is how Cambodia will develop as a whole. Somebody will do one thing, and then it makes it possible for somebody else to do another industry. But the other sort of food processing business that we're in is in Kingdom Breweries, which is a brand new beer brewery. I don't know if you've had a chance to try it yet.
Yes, of course.
But we when I moved here 3 years ago, I like to drink beer once in a while, and I tried the different beers in the market, and I felt that there's room for one more. Although we have good beer already, there's room for one more because consumers like to have a choice. And we decided to position Kingdom as a premium high-end beer, as good as a beer you can get anywhere in the world. So we set a very high goal for ourselves, and we were able to find a very good location on the river, and we've created a new brewery there. It's a small one, but it's state-of-the-art. It's brand new equipment from Europe. We have a German brewmaster who's an expert at creating beer, and we use the best ingredients we could source around the world, but we use Cambodian water and Cambodian labor, and we created a beer with a Cambodian image. Kingdom is for Kingdom of Cambodia, so it's sort of a national beer in the premium segment. So our goal here is not to make cheap beer, but to make good beer and great beer, actually. Beer that can win awards around the world. So we hope to, in addition to serving the domestic market and the tourists and the Cambodians and expatriates that like a good beer, we also wish to export this into other countries, because the world is always looking for something new, and we want to present Cambodia in a bottle on a label that people will pay a high price for, and they will say, I want that good Cambodian beer, not that cheap beer. So this is part of our repositioning of the image of Cambodia, that it can create world-class products.
Well, I hear you well, Doug. I think the exciting thing is that at least we can show that with the right technology, with the right mindset, with the right management, with the right approach, you know, Cambodia can and is in position to exploit its own endowment and turn into something value added. So sky's limit. If you are successful in a frozen shrimp factory in Sihanoukville, nothing stopped that somebody would do the same thing around the Great Lake with all this fish in abundance. If you can do the beer, you know, high-end premium beer, nothing stopped, you know, other Cambodian entrepreneur to move into soybean drink, to other sort of like food processing, juice processing, with the high-end that meet the phytosanitary, will meet the health safety, and be able to, you know, I don't want to use the word import substitution, but look, if it's produced here, it's cheaper, quality is good, consumer will have a choice. So in other words, is opening you know, more variety for the local market. I think that we're coming to the end of our show, but before we close the show, I want to ask you a bit, how do you see your prospect of your fund moving in the future, in the context of Cambodia future?
I could live anywhere, but I choose to live in Cambodia. I don't have any ties here except that I love this country and I'm very optimistic about its future. So I plan to hopefully spend the rest of my working life here. I may invest in other countries as well, but I would like this to be the global headquarters for Leopard Capital, basically. And that's because I think that when we look back, in 20 years, when I first visited Cambodia 20 years ago, the streets were not paved. There was no street lights. It was all very basic. And what's been created in the last 20 years is astonishing, remarkable, something for everybody to be very proud of. 20 years from now, I think that transformation will continue, and we will be looking at a very different country, a very modern, very admired country that other countries will point as an example of how a country can go from a conflict to a success story. I think we're halfway through that process, and it's looking very promising what will happen in the next 20 years. I think the government has done a very good job in creating an environment that will allow the entrepreneurial skills of Cambodians and foreigners to work together to create a modern nation here. So I'm very bullish, enthusiastic about the future here, and I plan to continue investing here as long as these opportunities exist.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. I want to say that for a fund of your magnitude, which is the 30-some million, you've been able to stimulate, you know, industry that can export, that create employment, create value for the country, create, in other words, hope for the country. I think money abounds in Cambodia, whether from the private sector, whether from the development partner, the local economy. I think it's there. It's a matter of moving the paradigm that we can do. Technology is available, expertise available, and this is where I'm a firm believer of this trade economic liberalization, where your brewery, you bring a German brewmaster, right? He have expertise. You bring latest technology in brewing, you know, so here it is, but we have our own expertise. You combine, you get something made in Cambodia. The sky's the limit for Cambodia. We should look to other sector like that, other industry like that, and I'm glad that Leopard Fund have paved the way and give a sense of hope of other entrepreneurs, whether foreigner, whether local, to say, yes, Cambodia have a lot of natural resource, abundant supply of young labor, looking forward, looking outward, and we are open for business. And this is something that I probably would want to close our session by saying that thank you for bringing this message of hope, of can-do attitude, and this optimism for the future. So thank you very much, Doug. Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of our show, and I look forward to seeing you again next week. Good night.